and they refuse to pay or they fail to pay. Then the last one is the economic shocks. Whatever it is, financial institutions are within the bigger macroeconomic environment. So if the economy is not doing well, it affects their business. So 3 important things are the critical indicators whether a financial institution, i.e. a bank or a savings and loans or a credit union is doing or is not doing well, is the institution being managed well by the managers of which they have given the institution to? 2, people are borrowing money from us because financial institutions, their major business is to give credits and make interest income. So if they don't borrow, they're not doing business. And the last one is the economy the bank is situated in. So sometimes we call this one external shocks. It come and hit them and the bank is unable to survive. So briefly, these indicators show whether a financial institution will do well or it will not do well.
Right. So we've got 3 points from Prof. Antwi here. Doc, do you want to add some more beyond the 3 that your colleague has mentioned?
Yeah. So Prof has, said it all. I basically put it in 3 main perspectives, which relates to financial, as to whether a bank should be solvent, should be liquid enough, to honor its liabilities and obligations. Secondly, it has to do with the operational, schemes, that the bank also or the financial institution would, as it were, put in place to ensure that there are no leakages, within the banking or the financial sector. And the third one has to do with the governance structures, which of course has to do with what Prof calls as management, related issues. And you see, when these 3 things are lacking, and for example, in the case of Ghana, what we witnessed, between 2015, 2016, 2017, it was deeply due to some of these problems that we have, or causes that we have indicated. And you realize that issues regarding bad debts, which has to do with operational issues, people not working well, also has to do with operational issues. And the fact that some few people within the banking and financial sector also colluded, as it were, to, or collaborated to sort of rob, depositors' money, within the banking fraternity, was some of the causes that actually made some of these banks, the banks that were collapsed during, I think, 2017 thereabout, in their inability to, as it were, honor certain obligations that they had. And so I think that, per your question, to make some of these banks or the banking sector or the financial sector robust enough, to be able to contribute towards economic development, we need to check some of these things. And when the regulator, the Bank of Ghana, and the Association of Bankers are able to strengthen some of these cracks, within the financial framework, the operational framework, and then the governance structure, within the financial sector, I think that Ghana should be one of the icons, of financial sector services, within Africa and even in the world.
When you mention the regulators, the central bank, yes, and the association of the oversight, the Bankers Association, which has the responsibility to monitor operations, also worthy of mention. But can we say that they are performing their roles effectively of monitoring and ensuring compliance when we've had to sink 21 billion into a financial crisis that was created out of mismanagement, poor management, non-performing loans, and economic challenges. Yes, economic challenges may not be directly under the control of the banks, but the first two that you mentioned and which you've also supported, surely there are regulations. So can we say that the oversight bodies are doing their work?
By and large, I would say that Bank of Ghana has been doing their monitoring, doing their banking supervision. If you read the Borders report, in terms of why the banks collapsed in Ghana, one of the major problems was fictitious related party transactions, which were not made available to banking supervisors when they come around. Bankers, this one is one of the problems for management of the bank. They will get into some transactions and they hide the accounting data or the accounting information. If I am from BOG, Banking Supervisory Division, and I've come to your branch or your bank, and you hide information from me, how would I know? And they send reports monthly, quarterly to BOG. And all these reports, they hide critical information from the regulator. So sometimes the regulator tries to do its work, but the management of the financial institution themselves are not helping the system to run effectively. The other side is that banking supervisors go everywhere. When they go, what do? Are they looking for lunch money? Are they looking for something else apart from the work we are using the taxpayers' money for them to go and do? So it's from both sides. The regulator should do its work well. I think the regulator will not be excused if a bank become insolvent. Isn't that there was something wrong in our supervision rule? And then managers of the banks should not be hiding financial information and data from the supervisors. Together, we can build strong financial institutions and it will support the Ghanaian economy.
Doc, do you want to add something? Prof is saying that the regulator can do all the monitoring, but if the critical information it needs to base its analysis on is withheld, then there's very little, if anything, that they can do.
Yes, I think that I agree, with what Prof has said, more especially when you intend or you have an intended purpose and there are some kind of hindrances against you. You find your work difficult, to perform. But then, you see, within every difficulty, that is where alerted minds come to play, and that is where we think of innovation. That is where we think of doing something outside the box, the normal, so that at least whatever you suspect or you think that it's not going on well, probably you try to find a new way of going around that challenge. I don't want to believe that Bank of Ghana or the regulator didn't know that there were some teamwork, between its own outfit and the management of banks and financial institutions in Ghana. Obviously, the reports, cited cases where officials of Bank of Ghana and some bankers have collaborated, to rob, depositors of their money.
Colluded, right? Then.
Sorry?
Colluded.
They colluded. Okay. Okay. So, that came up strongly. All right. So now, if this expose came up, what are we supposed to be doing, as it were, to check the leaks? All right. So, if, for instance, the people were putting impediments, and you have this report, the next thing is to move, probably to work for it, even before the report came out. I believe that Bank of Ghana had intelligence, so you don't really have to sit down, for a bank like UT to get to that point that it got to before you declare it insolvent. You don't probably sit down for Republic Bank to get to that stage that it got to before you declare it insolvent, right? So what was Bank of Ghana actually doing and monitoring, to probably, as it were, prevent some of these occurrences? Now, you realize that the moment it occurred, at a point in time, the economy of Ghana was not moving at the pace it was supposed to be moving. And that was, a gap that affected, government policy, government efforts, to develop this economy and to move the economy, to the next level of development. And so, for me, yes, the past is past, but we still learn from, the past. And that it is expected that Bank of Ghana, would not just strengthen its monitoring, activities, but to put in some level of digitalization, to ensure that whatever a teller does at the bank, that information is stored in the Bank of Ghana database. So at a point in time, if you are monitoring, you can see whatever is happening, and quickly, day by day, weekly basis, monthly basis, you issue a report to the banks cautioning them. I hope, I don't know whether I'm making, cautioning them, and to let them know that you are aware of whatever is happening. If you have to fire, you fire, and if you have to put some kind of, punishment, on the bank, you do it. All right, because the moment we sit for us to get to where we got to in 2016, 2017, then of course we can move on as a country. And you see, the president had it right. What he said was right. I mean, it is easy to borrow from the local banks than borrowing from, foreign banks. The cost is too expensive for you to pay.
So it means that the banking sector, the financial sector of a country carries a certain chunk of the weight of the economy. Am I right to assume that?
Yeah, that's correct.
And so because we had those difficulties, it was not surprising that after COVID, from what you are told, Russia-Ukraine war and the other global economic crisis challenges, was it a surprise that we ended up here? If that was the case, once the 21 billion was given in support of the cleanup exercise, why do we still see the financial sector as weak? Why would the president find the need to say, listen, if we do not bolster, we do not strengthen the systems, we would be in trouble again? 21 billion has gone into it.
Yeah, you see, this country will have a problem. The problem is that we don't learn from history. All these things that are in reports available to everybody, that caused us to lose 21 billion in some few years ago. We are back to the same stage. People are not managing financial institutions well. A number of financial institutions are still going for liquidity support from the BOG. The economy has become worse than it used to be in 2017, 2018. The problem is that both the managers of the economy and the managers of financial institutions are not helping the system to grow.
Why do you say that?
Why do we say that? Ghana is like a civil servant whose salary is about 2,000 Ghana cedi. And he believes that the 2,000 Ghana cedi is not enough to take care of his family. So every month, he goes for a bank loan, 1,000 Ghana cedi, and add it to his 2,000 Ghana cedi and enjoy with his family. Forgetting that this loan I have gone to collect, I will pay someday and pay interest on it. So one of our biggest challenge is public sector expenditure, government expenditure. Every time we are borrowing money to support the budgets. Now these monies we are borrowing, In future time, we are going to pay. So the key indicator why the economy is where it is today is because of public debt, both domestic and external debts. We are unable to manage the levels of the public debts. We are, at this point, in fact, we are unable to pay the principal as it matures and the interest. So the bigger picture is how are we managing the economy? And it will have effects on the banks. Now, when it comes to financial institutions, we have not learned any lessons. A few weeks ago, Bank of Ghana reported how many billions of Ghana Cedi bank staff have stolen from financial institutions across the country. Every year, we bring these reports. Some of them, probably they ran away. Some of them will be in jail. Huge amounts will not be recovered. So we are back to business as usual. And anytime you come to business as usual, be ready to get to where you got to the last time. So the three key indicators we've talked about, we should be putting an eye on them. Management of the banks. Until the current directives from the BOG, board members of banks in this country will distribute to themselves about 5 billion Ghana Cedi as loans, and in less than 6 months declare all those monies bad debts. And they are there. So all that you need to do is become a board member of a bank, and you are a rich person in this country.
But you see, when you weigh that against the idea that regular people, me and you, go to the banks to borrow and we do not pay back, and so we say that we pay the loans. These are board members. These are sometimes senior management members of institutions who are also taking money and they are not paying. So if they're given Akosua Amansan, she's also not paying, on what basis would you ask her to repay the loan to make the institution stronger? So
before Doc comes in, you see, is the problem with the Ghanaian. Two things is critical in credit assessments: ability to pay and willingness to pay. Now, as a credit officer, you do the assessment and know that this person can repay the loan. So let's give the loan to the person. We give the loan to the person, and he's not willing to repay the loan. He's just there, enjoying his life. The other side is that bank staff connive with people. You know that this guy cannot repay the loan. Give a good credit report on the person, and we'll give the loan to the person.
Because they may get something back from when the loan.
Yeah, I may not know, but it's possible. The person collects the money, and you go and check and know that this guy, we just need to declare this loan a non-performing loan. So it is our attitude towards banking services. Everybody believes that. And this is what I think. That once you get a loan from a bank, it's free money. Just go and spend it and live your life.
People believe that?
In fact, the reason why a lot of microfinance businesses are collapsed in this country is that perception from SMEs, market women, etc. When microfinance of business was booming in Ghana, go to their branches and see the long queues of market women and other small businesses trying to get loans. And the idea is that let's collect it, go and enjoy it, and vanish.
I mean, I would want to go into the aspect of building the economy by helping the SMEs to grow through this means, to give them access to credit so that they can do business and then pay back, but they are not paying back. So now let's look at
a very small one. Even the banks now are not giving the loans to the businesses.
Where would they get
because the money? No, they have the money because government instruments, T-bills, have become very lucrative. Interest rate on it is high. In quote, risk-free, until we got into DDEP. Restructuring our debt now, it was risk-free. So as a banker, I give a loan to an SME person. Tomorrow I go, the person has just vanished. In Ghana, just change your location where you are doing your business, and we cannot trace you again. So high risk area. I would prefer to put my money into a 91-day bill or 182-day bill short government securities, get their returns, and sit mine somewhere. So we need to balance it. It's not that the banker doesn't want to give you the loan. But the major problem is that he gives you the loan, you say this is your shop. Tomorrow he comes, they say he's no more here. Where do I locate you to collect my money? So you come to the bank, and I think that you're a high-risk person. I would prefer to put my money in government securities and government bonds. Now they go to the government bonds. Now they have a problem. The banks have lost a lot of money due to the DDEP. And it's something we need to keep an eye on. In fact, if banks will collapse, it will be as a result of the huge losses they've made due to the DDEP.
Okay, so how insulated are financial institutions from these shocks, Doc? Perhaps you can help us understand. We get the impression that banks have a lot of money. Is that the case? And if so, why then do they say banks are struggling? Because everybody takes their money, almost everybody who are banked takes their money to the bank.
So insulation means protection, right? All right. So basically, from what Prof is saying, and I've also indicated earlier, we see a lot of holes in the operations, the day-to-day operations of the of banks and the regulator as well. Now let me put this across, right? Then probably we can appreciate the issues better. Now, when the recapitalization policy came, that banks are supposed to have a minimum requirement of, I think, 400 million Ghana cedis. All right. Now, all the banks the 23 banks, the reduction from, I think, 36 or so, getting to 23 banks, okay, meant that the 23 banks are the ones that were able to meet that threshold requirement, isn't it? Now, so you have a starting capital or so of about 400 million Ghana cedis. Is it not supposed to probably increase? Let's say from 2018 up to now, probably you should be declaring profit, isn't it? What has happened? Now we see banks, some of them going for liquidity support. So what has happened to
the 400?
The 400 million. Is it because they are making losses out of their own operations, or there are gaps in there that people are not seeing, that to the extent that they are losing their own capital and even losing their profits? Is it because the banks are not profitable enough, or they are not engaging in profitable ventures that will make sure that they increase their liquidity?
Apart from the traditional services that banks provide, now they are in competition with others who are also providing financial services, which did not used to be the case before. Telecoms are now operating mobile money and mobile wallet accounts that they did not used to do before. So are all these, for example, are these Momo accounts a challenge to the banking system? And how can it be complementary rather than a threat?
Yes, so the whole thing is that if from a pure marketing perspective, right, if a product is not attractive, it doesn't offer enough benefit, to the consumer, how do you expect the consumer to continue patronizing it? Obviously, the consumer will look for an option, isn't it? Where I feel that I'll be safe, where my money will be secured, that anytime I want to access my money, I can get it. All right. So if issues regarding, bank insolvencies and all that are coming up,
it built some fear among certain groups of people. So they would rather have maybe Momo accounts than bank accounts?
Exactly.
What you're saying.
Exactly. So you see that if there's a kind of mistrust, as we are seeing in there, and more especially being worsened by issues regarding the DDEP, obviously people will want to switch to a more safer, account than probably going into something
it's
where...
almost safer than having a regular bank account
now,
because there are scammers and there are fraudulent deals everywhere. So
exactly.
It's
not supposed to be that. Okay. But I see that the Momo more or less is a one-time transaction. All right. It is not like somebody...
We're told that by next year, by 2024, there will be 1.7 billion Momo subscribers.
It will even increase.
1.7, as against how many bank accounts?
It will even increase.
And those are the questions we should be asking ourselves. And if we are putting the systems in place to, as Prof said, are we protecting, are we learning lessons? Because if the banks have had an issue, who are traditional, financial money related institutions, managing the monies, how are we equipping the telecoms, which were traditionally talk and internet service providers, with the requisite, fortitude to not fall prey to some of the things that the banking sector fell prey to? Are we doing that?
I think that even with the mobile money issues, they have their limits. Okay, and the limit is not as it is required with banks. All right. So obviously, as human beings, I mean, if for instance we didn't keep a huge amount of money in my Momo wallet, you understand?
You're not a merchant. People are doing thousands and thousands and thousands.
These are business concerns.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the individual.
A personal account.
Yeah, personal account. All right. But for those merchants and those using it as a business, all right, for them, they know the risk associated with it. Obviously, for every business venture, you know that there's a risk. So you decided to be there, and you probably need to protect yourself, even against armed robbers. All right. Yes. So for me, the challenges we are having in the banking sector, one is making it more or less not credible, for people to have that kind of trust in there. But these are challenges that we need to overcome, whether we like it or not. And you see, because you see, the banking sector is central to national development. You are talking about SMEs. Yes, of course. Where do SMEs borrow to enforce their operations, become more productive? All right. Again, they go to the same financial market to go and borrow. Now, this same financial market where they are borrowing, government is also there with T-bills, as Prof said. You see, it used to be the bonds and the T-bills and other instruments. All right. Bonds have fallen off, and T-bills is there. As we sit here, I think that the T-bill percentage is more than 25%. All right. Now, how much is the SME going to borrow? A young entrepreneur, how much is he going to borrow, to start a business and grow that business to become a global business? And if you establish a business and you limit your operations to your locality, of course you are not in business. The moment you fail on one step, it means that your business has crashed and you don't have a business again. You are not even affecting the economy in the way that is supposed to be. All right. And I keep saying that governments should be able to make millionaires, billionaires out of its economy. Else that economy will not become...
That's a very, very fascinating concept.
Else that economy will not develop. And you see, the burden on government is so huge that if things are not going well, everybody blames the government.
But here is a government, and I'll put this to Prof. We've unpacked quite a bit in a short time. Here's a government that prides itself on giving the private sector the opportunity to also play in this bigger space, or providing the essential things that Ghanaians need. And so public-private partnerships are common. And the room, or at least the idea of a room for private players to also have a share of the market, is available. We've talked about trust and how people perceive the banks sometimes as not very trustworthy to give their monies, because tomorrow the bank has collapsed and where's my money? I can't find it. We've talked about mistrust in government bonds because of the DDEP. Are we surprised at the downgrades that we get then from the Bretton Woods institutions, and then the effect it has on the performance of the economy when the upgrades go up or down, or when the downgrades go up or down, whichever way you want to put it? But credibility is what we are talking about here.
Okay, so I would like to have a different opinion from the president when he said that our major problem is coming from rating agencies. It's like a student who has come to school, has refused to study. An examination, he has scored 0, like the National Teaching Council licensure examination. And the student is complaining why me, the lecturer, is giving him or her 0 because he refused to study, and that he wished that his father, he has stayed home for his mother and father to teach him so that he will get 100%. The first thing about a rating agency is that they carry some level of credibility across the world.
Credible, but are they always fair?
So we'll come to the fairness.
Okay.
That if you don't deserve a B or a C or a B plus, and they give to you, this country complain, that country complain, that country complain, that rating agency will not become credible. So they have a huge image to protect. Number 2, the figures they use to rate you. Who brought the figures? The figures is coming from the government of Ghana. Our figures. Of course, if you live in Ghana, you don't need anybody to tell you that we are in difficult times. All the figures they are using to rate us, the figures come from the government of Ghana. I am sure if they themselves are come here to pull up the figures, probably would have been worse off. When they were giving us good ratings, did we accuse them that they were not doing well? I think the first step is that we should look at our own environments, attempt to improve our economy, the grace will come. I look at it purely from the job I do. You are a good student, you score good marks. You are a bad student, you score bad marks. That student who did not get a good mark should look at him or herself internally.
But examination sometimes favors a party that may not be prepared. Someone may have studied, it's just that upon Andrope, his question did not come. So
but
he may not have
case,
answered that question you asked.
Yes, but
so
in this case, the figures
are they using the right parameters to assess us?
Is it only Ghana that the rating agency Standard & Poor's and Co. are rating? I'm very worried. Because they rate nations across the world. Look, in our current situation where we are crying, Morocco is rated well, and a number of African countries are rated very well. So what happened? Is it that they got apple and we didn't get some? The first step is that we should not be too bothered about them. We should be bothered by ourselves. He mentioned making millionaires. China has currently made about 4 million millionaires in their country. I don't know how many we have made.
We are getting there.
We have not started yet.
We've not started.
We have not started yet. So, for me, we should just...
I suggest that it may take us longer, but may I suggest that there are policies, and when I talk about government and private sector partnerships, government has instituted programs to support even startup businesses. There are training programs that are, offering vocational skills, technical skills. And all this is meant to, feed into that entrepreneurship ideology that we are beginning to have, this industrialization drive that we want to have. Is it not enough? We have 1D, 1F. Some factories have been set up. So we are getting somewhere, are we not? You don't think we are?
From where I sit, I don't think we have started yet.
You see, the scenarios you are painting is just like having a barrel and you want to fill it with water. And let's say you fill it with water and then you just pick this water and then take the cork, fill it and then drop one in. What change is it going to make?
Mm-hmm.
It's not enough. Then.
It's not enough. You see, Prof is saying that as lecturers, we assess students and their performance based on their output. It's as simple as that. There's no question about Monsieur or I learnt and the apport didn't drop. There's no question about that.
Parts of a computer and
we have given you course syllables i.e. course outline. Topics week by week is there. As a tertiary education student, you are supposed to take the lead. Find books, read, make your notes, so you can put a challenge, ask questions in the lecture hall. You wouldn't do it when the semester is getting to an end or even mid-semester. That is where you start preparing. What happens to you? You have enough information to meet the question, so you become selective in terms of the topics you want to learn. And what you are thinking is not what the lecturer is thinking. The answers you provide probably may be out of what the marking scheme has stated.
But you see, ironically, on the other side, the financial...
I am coming to the financial institution issue, all right, based on the illustration that Prof was giving. And it is clear, these rating agencies, they have their criteria, isn't it? They have reasons for using one particular criteria or using a combination of them. They have reasons. And when there are financial indiscipline, all right, and they are cautioning you, and you wouldn't listen and take to your own marking scheme, what happens? Obviously, they'll come up with their verdict. And when they come up with the verdict, who suffers?
But these are the same institutions that we go to for help when we are in a crisis. We went to the IMF for a program. That help has arrived, at least the first tranche of it has arrived. Where do we begin to grow our independence that we are calling for? When we look up to the institutions for the upgrades, we look up to them for the budget support, we look up to them to come to our aid when our ship
can I come in before Prof this
troubled
one,
waters.
with all humility?
Okay.
You see, for me, I always will go with the Asian examples. China, South Korea, Malaysia. All right? These are countries that sat down to develop their own developmental frameworks, and it worked. Why do we need IMF? Is IMF going to be here forever? And so we still will count 1, 2, 16, 17, 18, endless, infinity. All right? Now, if we are saying that we are an independent sovereign country, what kind of policy have we developed domestically to ensure our economic growth? When we are blaming China for contaminating our water bodies, and then we told the High Commission, what did the woman say? Do we live in Ghana? Are my Chinese people, do they know Ghana? Do they live in Ghana? It's your own people. That tells you that if we can build our own policies to drive our economy, to drive industrialization, to drive entrepreneurship, all right, it will work for us.
So build our own policies, chart our own path, is
exactly
what Dr. is saying. Prof, what would be your suggestion for an attempt to even turn the fortunes around? The president said, until we build the strong financial institutions, this development that we are looking for will not be able to achieve it.
So the first thing is that as a people and as a government, let's cut our material according to our size. If we have not immersed ourselves into a lot of loans we would have gotten here, we can tell ourselves that, look, we don't need loans to develop our country. We will do the revenue mobilization. Whatever we can mobilize, we start from there. We will use it to manage our system year on year. Now we don't have money, but there are many projects happening in Assin North in the last few weeks. Most of them, I'm sure, they're on credit, unplanned. We'll finish the election. We now have to look for money to pay the contractors. And those contractors are gone for bank loans to execute the projects. Government doesn't pay them, so the rippling effects of our actions. So first, we need to tell ourselves that let's cut our coat according to our size. If the revenue we can generate, we can spend that over the next 5 years and see how we pay off our loans. You know, IMF is giving us 3 billion. If you multiply it by 10, that is 30 billion Ghana cedis. Didn't we use 21 billion to clean up the banking sector? What will 30 billion do to us? If we look inwardly and organize our affairs well. All these problems we are in, why have we refused to cut government expenditure? We are still on. Ministries, agencies, and departments every year overrun their budgets. The first place that overrun its budget is the presidency. Every year. So look, let's all come together as a people and say that enough is enough about the plenty talks. What can we do? Let's hit the ground running. The first thing is that let's check government expenditure. 2, improve revenue mobilization. Many people get their goods out of the port without paying anything because they are politically connected. And there are too many stories around that. If we improve our revenue mobilization and cut down on our expenditure, we will be on a good path of bringing our economy to a point where it will help the ordinary Ghanaian. Now, the problem is not those of you that are at the top. Go to the market and see how somebody go to the market. He's not able to buy the things he wants to buy because his purchasing power has gone down. He goes back and they eat. Do you know the 010 principle? You don't eat in the morning, you eat in the afternoon, or late afternoon, you don't eat in the evening. This is what we have brought our
in some circles it's called intermittent fasting. But Prof and Doc, thank you so much for making the time.
Yeah.
This is all we would have time to accommodate this morning, but I'm sure we will have another opportunity to have a more extended conversation about the power of the financial sector and what it can do for the economy. The president calling for African financial institutions to continue to build themselves up to offer the needed background for the transformative agenda that Africa is on. Are we doing that? Are we learning our lessons? The panel believes that we should build our own policies like the Asians example have taught us. We should cut our coat to our size and improve revenue mobilization. Professor Samuel Entry is a dean at UPSA Graduate School, and Dr. Bernard Tutubuahin is a political marketing consultant and a lecturer at the Department of Marketing and Entrepreneurship at the University of Education, Winneba. Gentlemen, thank you for making the time. And thank you also for watching this segment. I'm Thelma Taki. We'll be back to give you some sugar to wrap up this day before we head into tomorrow's holiday. We hope that you've had a super swell day so far. Follow our social media handles, GTV Ghana, every